MC Miss Dewi Sarvika for your very kind introduction. And welcome everyone to our third session of R2SEP. Yeah. In this session, hopefully we can have a very fruitful discussion. And here, as stated by the MC, I will serving as your moderator for this afternoon session. But before we proceed, I would like to say hi to our the one and only speaker, Dr. Ivan. Dr. Ivan, are you here?
Yes, good afternoon, Dr. Trianda. Thank you for your time.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, nice to meet you. I think this is our first meeting, right? Hopefully we can get along after not only this event, but after this event as well. So before we start, I would like to introduce our speaker here. So our speaker named Ivan Kristianto Singgih, PhD. He is an assistant professor in Department of Industrial Engineering, University of Surabaya, or we call it as Ubaya, Indonesia. He is also a member of the Asosiasi Peneliti Indonesia in Korea, APIK, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. So about his educational background, he got a doctoral degree in Busan National University in South Korea. Maybe you want, if any of you would like to continue further your from master to PhD in South Korea, you might ask or consult with Dr. Ivan. Maybe if Dr. Ivan already meet the BTS or the Blackpink, maybe he can share as well. Okay, so the master degree is he got from the ITB with a fast track program, and as well as his bachelor degree is from ITB as well. Now he is working as a lecturer full-time in Ubaya University. He is also a postdoctoral researcher in quantum machine learning laboratory in South Korea, and as well as the postdoctoral researcher in KAIS and quantum machine learning. So is this currently what you are doing, Dr. Singgih?
Oh, actually, I stopped doing research in quantum anymore. So I focus more on industrial engineering now.
Oh, okay, I see. So glad to have you back in Indonesia. And his research interest is about industrial and management engineering and quantum machine learning. And also I received his CV files. He is also a very skillful in a mathematical modeling about the CPLEX, LINGO, and also simulation of urban mobility and programming language. So in today's session, we will have a session about common research methodology in your fields and research management skill, which is a very important skill for any postgraduate students. And I hope all of you could learn a lot from Dr. Ivan and ask a lot of questions. Is it okay, Dr. Ivan, if the participant asks a lot of questions?
Sure, that is why I'm here.
Oh, nice. So hopefully, please just ask. In this session, there is no stupid question. So just ask anything you want. So because we are here to learn something new, we are here to help you to finish your postgraduate program. And so here is Dr. Ivan that is coming among us. Okay, Dr. Ivan, are you ready for today's talk?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, sure. So I think you have so our session is up to 5 p.m. 5:30 p.m. So maybe you can have a talk about an hour max, so that we can have a very long discussion. Okay, so maybe that's all, Dr. Ivan. Time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trianda, and also Miss Dewi and team for inviting me today. Thank you, everyone. I am Ivan again, and I believe that actually we are here to learn together. So I as well I'm also learning from all of you. So as Dr. Trianda said, please ask a lot so we can discuss more, of course, for the good of Indonesia. So please let me share my screen. Sorry, can you see my screen now?
I'm sorry, I'm muted. Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So yes, when I prepared this topic, actually, I focus more on industrial engineering because it is my field. So when I think about the common research methodology, basically I'm talking about what kind of algorithm, what kind of method I use in my research. But I believe that it will be confusing only to focus on industrial engineering. That's why at the first part, even I talk about industrial engineering, but at the last part, I talk more about more general research methods and also some collaboration skill, including how we can work with companies and other researchers as well. So yes, hopefully, yes, as Dr. Trianda said, I will try to explain a bit fast for the earlier part, but at the end, please ask a lot. So this talk will be useful. Yes, so actually at the first time I was invited by Asosiasi Peneliti Indonesia di Korea, so I also thank APIC for this chance with their collaboration with ITS. Uh, I I provide some links to my profile, so if you are interested, I am open for any discussion. Dr. Trianda mentioned that maybe I met BTS, but unfortunately I cannot help with that because I never met them. But I really want to help any of you who want to know more about Korea, especially if you want to study there. So there are some professors who are looking for researchers. Basically, if we work on engineering field in Korea, they will always ask about our programming skill. No matter what department we come from, they will always ask about our experience. So anytime you think you need my help, I can also suggest you to some good researchers, Indonesian researchers, and they can find some position for you if you are interested. So I have my ResearchGate profile. This is my CV, email. So you can contact me anytime and send your CV, of course, and the department that you are interested in, and I will find some people to help you, and some GitHub containing my code. I want to give some brief introduction about my background again, so you can ask more, because I believe that South Korea is one of the leading Asian country in terms of technology and also research. So hopefully you can ask many things related with my experience. So I did postdoc in 3 quite good places. So I think it's a grateful chance in Korea University, guys, and Posttech, and I really hope that I can share my experience for the good of Indonesia. And during my postdoc work, I work with some company, including LG. So what we did with LG is, with the team in guys, I joined them to give some training for them. So we talk about smart factory that time, and also genetic algorithm to do the product design. And then also for the quantum topic, actually, if you are interested, I can introduce you to some good researcher in Korea University. So basically, quantum computer is, we believe that in few 20 years ahead or 10 years ahead, many classical computer cannot work by itself, but it needs quantum computer which can work very fast. So Korea is working a lot about this topic. We collaborate with Cubic Tech related with the hardware and software development for scheduling in the smart factory. Hankook Tire for the tire design. So what we did is we made the code, the algorithm in the code, and then after that we transfer the code to the company. So we discussed a lot during several months until the code matched their system somehow. And then we work with POSCO for the routing, LG Electronics for some part design, and then also the Ministry of Ocean and Fisheries Korea for the container terminal design. Okay, so my research interest is basically in operational research. So how we can minimize the cost, so we can, when we design logistic system and production system. And that was my initial work in my PhD. When I did my postdoc, finally, I tried to include machine learning and try to combine it with operational research method. So one example is the drone routing. So if in the operational research, what we do is when we want to fly drone to observe some area after flood or volcano case, then we need to find the best route which can observe the all points in a very short time. So that is what we do in operational research. For the machine learning, I work in some semiconductor research. So when we have smart manufacturing and we have many sensors in the factory, how we can collect the data, and then we analyze the relationship between the input and output. So every time we get new data, we can directly estimate or predict what happens like few days after the factory run. So we can prevent everything very early. For example, if we know the machine will be broke, or if we know that the target production is not satisfied, then we can do something. So we make that prediction model. That is about the topic and the skill. Professor, it is already mentioned in the earlier part, so I will skip it. Please let me have only 2 minutes to introduce about Asosiasi Peneliti Indonesia di Korea. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I was asked by them to represent them for this talk today. So basically we have about 400 Indonesian researchers there who are at least a doctoral degree student, and then until postdoc researcher and full-time professors. We have many research clusters. So if you are interested to collaborate, we can discuss. We have some recent collaboration with KPRI Seoul, Kedutaan Besar, and then Student Association, BRIN, UI, ITS also, for example, through this talk, and then some research collaboration discussion with Telkom, etc. So we want to accelerate the research development and implementation in Indonesia. So basically, we want to learn what is good from Korea, and we try to collaborate. But we want to discuss with many people, Indonesian people in any country, so we can work together to make a better Indonesia. Hopefully, we can compete with other country and make a very good impact in our area. So this is our leader here, Dr. Tom Hurt, and then we have Dr. Bernardo and Dr. Adam. So they are working in Korea, and then Dr. Adam is working in UI, and then we have a PhD candidate as our secretary as well, Ms. Fana. And then we have some directors here, including me here. So we have, yeah, you can see it later. Also, we have it in our website. This is the list of clusters if you want to collaborate. This is some recent activities we had. We discussed with BRIN. We share our research experience, how we can find scholarship, etc. to students also. So if you are interested, we can also accommodate you with that kind of information, and we discuss with other person as well. These are some activities that we have. Most are related with the research development activities online. And then, yes, I already explained about this. So if you're interested, please contact us through this link. We have the website with our information. We also have some YouTube link with our webinar information, webinar recording as well. Thank you. So yes, I will start talking about common research methodology in industrial engineering. So I will talk about what kind of solution method we have. And then when we have many options to choose, how we can choose among them when we do research. So basically what I have in operational research, we have many methods like this. For example, I talk about how we can find the fastest route using drone. There are many methods, but different method will produce different solution. Usually in industrial engineering, we measure the solution based on the solution quality. Means that if we want to minimize the drone travel time, then it means this one. So after disaster, we need to decide where we need to move people, where we need to move the goods, so we can supply the disaster relief goods as soon as possible. So the response time or the drone movement time is the solution quality. But different method also will have different calculation time. So when we run our code at the computer, then some method will take a long time, some method will take a short time. For example, here, if we use the rule, then we just choose using a greedy method. What we think is the best in that step. For example, we choose the shortest distance, for example, and then at the end we will get the solution. In this way, we can get a very short computational time, but the solution is not guaranteed to be the best. We have mathematical model, the solution is better, but the computational time is long. And then I will skip about this one, but we have also exact method, similar with the mathematical model. We have algorithm, and we also have meta-heuristic. I think meta-heuristic is more common in many research field. So I saw many papers using genetic algorithm, even from chemistry and also from many fields, not only industrial engineering. And then usually these methods are tested using simulation into a simulation software. And then late in 2019, I find some papers related in industrial engineering. They try to combine machine learning with traditional methods listed above like this. So yeah, I think this is a good trend that many people are using. And of course, it opens collaboration between research fields because, for example, some people understand more about the problem, but some people, especially in computer science, they understand more about how machine learning works and good methods, so we can collaborate to make good research. When we need to choose the method, we need to consider the computational time and also the quality of the solution, as I mentioned. So usually when we collaborate with company, they already have their own standard. For example, this time will be it will be okay to find the solution. This is not too long. Then we will follow that one, and then you can find some example about this comparison in this link. I will skip this I will only explain very briefly. So basically, we schedule the first thing that we find. For example, the first drone that arrive at a certain point, and then the exact method, if you ever heard about dynamic programming, it is finding the shortest path. So it is similar with finding all routes, but we only choose some potential nodes. So that is a way to reduce the computational time. And then we have branch and bound. This is the heuristic. Basically, we have step by step what to do. Meta heuristic tries to, when we find solution, we want to escape from local optimal solution. If you're interested, you please ask at the end of the session. I will skip this one to avoid too detailed explanation. And then we have in meta-heuristic, usually they also mimic some behavior of animals. So we have firefly, sometimes we have whale optimization and colony as well. So there are many meta-heuristic like that. I heard there are more than 200 in some review paper that I read. And then there are also integrated approaches. So why we need integrated approach? Because each approach has their own advantage. So we need to combine them to make a good method. So find a good solution in a short time. So yes, they usually call it hybrid methods. We can combine the exact method with the meta-heuristic, with heuristic, even we can combine between different meta-heuristics. And then we can also combine mathematical model with algorithm. This is the integration with machine learning that I mentioned. So if you're interested, you can see this paper. So what happens is usually in operational research, we find the route directly, we measure the travel time, but in machine learning, they try to find some feature. For example, if the customer are separated with a similar angle, like this one, the angle between the customer, then the customer is not dispersed. So the customer are not too far away. So they try to measure this kind of feature, and then they train a model to find good route. So this is one latest research in this field. And if you're interested to learn more about machine learning, a short training that I did, you can open this link. There are some useful machine learning libraries here. When we use Python language, you can refer to that. Okay, so the method selection that we already saw above, how can we select them? Usually I can say that there are two factors that we need to consider. The first one is our targeted journal, assuming that we do research for writing papers, because some journal focus more on the theoretical research. So in the theoretical research, then they expect to have more mathematical model. But some research, some journal, they focus more on more practical cases. So as long as our method is implemented to solve real problem, then the journal will accept our paper. So means that for the method to be practical, the computational time should be shorter rather than having a complicated mathematical model or something. So we need to understand the target journal, read some example of papers published there, and then we can determine our method. And then, of course, when we collaborate with our company or industry, then we need to know what kind of method they want to use. One case is when I did postdoc, a certain company asked us to use genetic algorithm only. That's why we applied that method, possibly because they understand that GA is the current best method, or they understand more about genetic algorithm. That's why we use that. So that is another reason. Yes. And then, so yeah, this is what I mentioned when I talk about selecting the appropriate method. We discussed about understanding what kind of paper are published in the journal. So I want to share some experience what we did in my lab in Korea, in several labs actually in Korea. We asked the student, that time master and PhD student. So we need to present a paper every 2 months. So every 2 months we present one paper. But every week we will have a meeting. So every week one student will present. And we try to select papers from good journals. So because of that, we can understand what kind of standard we need to achieve when we want to publish a paper in that journal. So yes, we can. I love this expression, we are what we eat. So basically, when we read good journal papers, then we can understand more about good journal papers, and then you can publish at good journals as well. My PhD supervisor gave me a good illustration about type of research. So if we see at this graph on the right, the vertical part is talking about the theoretical level of the paper, so the complexity of the model. But the horizontal is talking about the practical contribution. So whether we solve a real problem or we only develop a model and we do nothing with any real data. So some research have a complicated mathematical model or method, but cannot be applied to solve real problem. It is also useful because after developing a complicated model, then we can find some useful properties or useful method to develop other better method. But some paper focus more on solving a real problem without a complicated method. It is also a good method because, of course, we do research to actually solve real problems. But the best way is solving problem with high theoretical contribution and also high practical contribution. So hopefully we can work on that field if you agree. And then also there are several type of research. I believe in the previous session, Dr. Bayu mentioned a lot about this, but I want to give some other point of view. We can write paper solving a new problem, introducing a new problem to the community, so people can start to understand and develop many methods. But we can also solve an existing problem, but we try to propose a new solution method, possibly with a better computational time, a better solution quality, something like that. But of course, to do all of this, we need to do an extensive literature review. That's why one way that I mentioned before is we read a lot of paper, discuss with our colleagues a lot, so we can understand the field well. This is some example of papers. This is actually a review paper. If you're interested, you can open it. So this is what I use machine learning to analyze semiconductor or smart factory data using machine learning. And then this is the more operation research based. So we try to minimize the cost to move electric vehicle. It is more logistics related. In this paper, we use the combination between mathematical model and heuristic, and then also solving the mathematical model itself. This is the drone routing problem, also using the meta heuristic. Yes, that is the first part. So for the next part, I think this is more interesting, and hopefully you can get more insight here. So I want to talk about my experience in the research management. I will talk about time management in research, talk about the importance of team discussion with our other researcher in our team, the importance of doing code sharing. So our code, we open it for public. There are many ideas actually. Some people prefer to keep their code so they can improve the code better and better, but some people try to open. I will share more about that. And then also the importance of doing networking and collaboration and how. So I believe that doing research is not only ourselves sitting in front of a computer, reading papers, learning the code by ourselves, but in Korea, we were trained to discuss a lot with students. So even we write our thesis or dissertation by ourselves, it is common for us to have, it might be different in many places, but what I had is every week, at least we meet to discuss about our progress. When we have faced any problem, other people will try to help. Even we try to check our code together. If we have good papers, then we share it to each other. If we have some, we discuss about everything. So basically, that is how we can improve our research result a lot. So talking about time management, we need to understand first the step we need when we do research and write papers. So we need to select the right target journal, and then we need to understand the papers published there, and then after that we submit the paper. So this is some illustration about how long we need to invest when we write conference paper or journal paper. It might be different with your experience, but please let me know if you have other experience so we can discuss. For conferences, we have domestic and international. For international conference case, usually 6 months before the conference or even more than that for good conferences, we will be asked to submit abstract, and then several months after that we submit the full paper. After that we do the conference, and then after the conference sometimes they will choose some good papers only to be published in a special issue. So when we open the conference website, usually they will show us the target journal that they collaborate with. So if the journal is good, then it is a good way for us, because at the same time we publish the conference paper, and we can also have the journal paper after that. So if we get the offer for that publication, then we can revise the paper and then do the publication. And then for the journal paper, this is the general way. There are some other way using special issue, but this is the general way. So we write the paper and then we proofread it, and then we submit the paper, and then it finishes. Sometimes we pay the publication fee, sometimes we don't, depends on the journal. Some researchers prefer to do the paper presentation on conferences before they do the publication in journal. Why? Because in the conferences, we will get good inputs from researchers, especially if we join top conferences. So in our field, I think it is very important to understand what kind of conferences is difficult to join, but means that we have reputed or good researchers there who can give very good comments for us. And of course, during our graduate study, from undergraduate, of course, but graduate study especially, spending a lot of time to learn research in the hard way from experienced researcher is a very good time, because some people mention that after doing our PhD, for example, we might be busy. So doing PhD, focusing on having a good basic for our research is an important thing to do. And then, of course, I always suggest everyone to follow our supervisor's guidance. So regardless on our plan, on what we know about everything, what we want to do, we need to discuss a lot, because some supervisor, of course, every supervisor know more about us, know more about research, but some supervisor prefer to do publication directly on journal. Some supervisor might prefer a certain conference, for example, conference, a specialized conference for a certain field. Sometimes it is important for them to publish there. So a lot of discussion with our supervisor is very good and important. So what can we get when we join conferences? We can, of course, practice to do our presentation. Sometimes having a good research skill, but it's not enough without being able to express it to other people. And we can learn from other researchers. Usually we can see what they are doing, and then we can compare with us. If we see that in a certain community, the level of publication or the level of technology implementation, the type of method that they use is much higher than us, it will motivate us to understand or learn much more, much better methods. And then, of course, it is good to do networking. I suggest that when we join conferences, my father actually always teach me to bring my name card. I never know who I met, but when I introduce myself using my name card, someday, several months or years even after that, we can collaborate on doing some research. Or one example that I did is after 2 years, one of my paper was published with one researcher, and then even after 4 years, after meeting a certain researcher, he invited me to join his research to do some publication, some other research. Even we are active in doing machine learning discussion in a certain community now. So it is very good to join many conferences if you have chance. And then I want to share about how we very briefly about how to find top journals. So if you open in Scopus, then you can choose the field, and then you can find the journal with highest rank here. I will skip this because it is discussed previously, I think. But what I want to say is, after we select the appropriate journal, then we can find this call for papers part. So it is related with so there are general submission for the journal, but sometimes the journal also open submission for a certain topic like this. If we open this one, then we can see the publication schedule here, and we can use it to manage our time. For example, if we know that this is one journal that I am targeting, for example, if we know the submission deadline is 31 December, then we can plan our paper better. So as you can see here, the final decision date is about less than 6 months. Usually it is faster than general submission. So it is interesting to try to find this kind of opportunity. Another tip is, it is important to collaborate and discuss a lot with active researchers. So especially when I haven't written any paper during so in my PhD, I wrote domestic papers that time instead of international journal papers. So even after my PhD graduation, I need to learn a lot. I am very grateful for doing postdoc with a good supervisor or advisor. So what we did is he let me select the research topic. I did the literature review, but at the end, when I write the paper, we discuss a lot. So that what I mentioned to all of you before, we meet every week, and then every time we have progress, he helped me with the paper writing. So the one important thing that I learned is when we start writing, of course, the first step is always difficult, but we just need to write and give something to our supervisor so we can discuss. When we, the more time we spend with our supervisor, the faster we can develop our skill faster and we can complete our task well. So after writing like 2 or 3 papers with him, it becomes much easier for me to do the research by myself. So it is important to meet active and productive researcher, especially who produce paper in good journals, including our supervisor. We need to discuss a lot with him so we can improve in a very short time. And we need to read a lot of papers, of course, as I mentioned before. About the research schedule planning, we of course we need to understand the rules set by our university, by ITS, but we also need to discuss a lot with our supervisor because as I mentioned before, we even before our graduation, from undergraduate until graduate, our supervisor will sometimes have a certain path that he wants us to follow to be a good researcher. So we need to discuss a lot when we will graduate, what kind of targets that we need to satisfy because before he or she allow us to graduate. So what I did with my supervisor that time is yes, we understand first the time we need. So when we submit the paper to our journal, they need a review time. For good journals, they need 1 year. So based on this one, then we need to plan when we submit the papers. And also different university have a different standard for the graduation, what kind of journal, etc. I want to share about how people do research in South Korea. So hopefully this can give some insight. Of course, if you have good insight, also please share here so we can learn together. So how we work is usually every day from Monday until Friday at 9 until 6 p.m. Graduate students, especially, we stay at lab. So we sit in a certain room together, and then we do research all time. At between the research time, sometimes we have some meeting, so we can share our problems, we can discuss to each other. But usually this time is not enough, so most people even work longer than this time and stay at lab or work at home. But most of our time we spend more to learn programming skill, as especially because ITS is more focused on engineering. I think everyone will need to learn programming, which is very important in engineering. And then we report our research progress with our supervisor as soon as possible. So sometimes some people, there are different type of students. Some students prefer to just wait until the supervisor look for him or her, but some people go actively and find the supervisor. So if we are given a certain targets, then anytime we finish it or anytime we face any difficulties, it is much better if we are the one who active and visit our advisor to understand what we need to do next. And then joining lab project meeting, discussion with other professor and student. And in addition, in some universities where I worked before in Korea, they invite good presenters from big companies. For example, we have Naver, we have Kakao. We also invite the university also invited NASA that time. So this activity is outside of our research activity at our campus or lab, but it is very important because by doing that, we can understand what kind of latest technology that big companies use, and then what kind of skill that we need to improve ourselves so we can follow the improvement in the society very well. So I suggest us to join this many kind of meeting. Of course, especially I believe IT has invited many good researchers, so it is very good to learn a lot and ask a lot, of course. Yeah, I talked about this one already. And then, so about the research topic selection, it is already discussed in the previous session, but what I want to emphasize here is even the topic selection can start from the supervisor, but can also start from the student. What we need to do as a student or a researcher is we need to be active. Every time our supervisor let us know his interest, it is very important to read a lot about that topic. But every time we find anything interesting for us, we need to also discuss a lot with him. So yeah, more communication, and then we can get more result. That is basically what I want to say. I'm sorry if I need to stop. Please remind me. Thank you.
Yeah,
And then
you just can go on. You still have time.
yeah, thank you. And then some good habits. Yeah, I'll talk about this one. So we need to be proactive to meet with our supervisor, and then sticking on the schedule set by our supervisor is good. So there are many style of researcher, of course, including supervisor. Some supervisor might set some target. If he asks us to, for example, for me, please complete this code until 2 months, for example. Then we need to stick on that schedule. Whatever happens in the middle or at most at the end of that 2 months, we need to discuss with him and show the progress. Sometimes what happened with me is after discussion, we realize that that approach is not right. So we need to change our method. That is one thing that happened. Another, the best thing, of course, is we do the research and then the result is good, then we just need to add more experiment and publish the paper. But how about the case when the supervisor do not set any specific timeline? Then we need to make our own target. My supervisor always teach me that when we learn something, it might need a lot of time to start. Maybe 6 months, for example, when I learn new programming language. But after we write several codes again and again, like writing paper as well, then the writing time or the research time become much faster. So we know what to do. The only issue now is how to improve the quality of our result. So what I want to say is it is good for us to understand our limit or our skill level. We set a certain target for a certain task. If we cannot complete it, then we can try to extend, but we always measure our capability. When we make another research plan, then we can always focus on our previous experience, and then we try to make a faster research with a better, of course, with a good result. Yes, and then what is good in South Korea actually, and I really think it is important for us Indonesian researcher to do in our lab is, I believe some supervisor already do this, but I think we as students, we can also try to implement this as well. Doctoral students always are asked to guide master student and undergraduate students. So also master student, they will guide undergraduate students to do the research. So it will save a lot of time for discussion, especially because not every time we can discuss with our supervisor. So building this kind of atmosphere is good. If we have some team in our research, we can start to make this kind of discussion, of course, or we can actively ask to them. This is how I spend my time during my PhD study. among my time, 60% I use to do programming. And then for 30%, I try to do literature review and find the appropriate methods. It is before the programming, of course. And then at the end, writing is about 10%. It might be different by other people in different field, but this is what I do. So I learned a lot about being, I don't know the word, but work hard and be consistent, and finally we will get the result. So this is some good skill that is important for us to do good research, good English, because with good English we can understand a lot of good papers. We can write papers well also, but of course we can later focus. We can also use some proofreading softwares. If you are interested, I will let you know some software which can help us to check the English grammar. And then understanding programming is important, and writing codes directly is much faster than us reading manuals. When I start learning programming also, I wanted to read the thick book about Java programming, but finally I can do programming after I get some initial code from my friend, and I improve that simple code by searching on Google. So yes, start writing code, ask a lot from experienced researchers, and we can collaborate, of course. When we learn something from someone, then we also help him or her to improve their skill on something, or even at least we have someone who can we learn from. So don't be shy to ask. Completing tasks as soon as possible is important. Try to spend activities which are useful for our study. So sometimes when we study, we feel stressed a lot. So we need to somehow not sit in front of a computer. What I did during my PhD is I visited some international conference, even in the same city, but that international conference was free that time. And they invited people from Germany or from Netherlands who talk about port management. And that gave me good insight for my research. But I feel I feel happier, and I can at least go outside from my lab for a while. But it is still a useful activity. So I find this kind of activity is very important. Making target, I always make my target. It is okay for us to not satisfy our target, but at least we make our target, so we know what to do. We can make target for every day. Sometimes I make target for even every 2 hours, so I can be productive at the time. And then working in a group is important. Sometimes we do research together. I believe everyone have their own strong skill. So for a certain person to understand everything is possible, but not easy. So it is very, very useful, or we can save time when we discuss a lot. When someone is good at something, we ask from him. The problem is when we work together in a long time, we might face some conflict, because we have different personality. So we need to also learn about conflict management. Usually, if we work in our research team, then we will have some seniors, like what I mentioned before, doctoral students, or even our supervisor. It is also good to discuss with them how to resolve this kind of problem, so we can finish the problem and we work together again. This is also related when we work together with company. So maybe for students, we do not talk a lot with industry company, but in Korea, even doctoral student, they are trusted by their supervisor to talk with the company directly. And we might also face some conflict with them. So this include solving the conflict with the outside university partners. We need to be confident to express our idea and skill. As what was mentioned in the earlier part, there are no stupid questions. There are no stupid discussion. I was also very, very shy. What happened to me is I like to think when people give their idea, I think it is not like that. It should be like this, but I cannot say and express my idea during my meeting, but after 20 minutes, someone mentioned about it, and I was thinking that I knew it, but I cannot say it. But what I want to say is, being confident, it will help us to improve a lot. Of course, when I talk more, it will save time, and people know what I can do. We can have more productive discussion and better result. This is what I want to mention. We need to have an endurance when we want to do good research. So good research need a lot of hard work and patience also, but we need to also, of course, find ways to do research happily. What I mentioned to you. So we find inspiring mentors. That is also important for me. We talk with successful researchers, talk about not only about research, but also about how they can do research for a long time and happily, how they set their targets, what they think to how can they think positively about their research. This is also important. And grabbing all research opportunities is important. So if we find good seminars, please join. It will help our research development. And then we can read papers from many links. I believe you know much about this one already. And then enough computer processing speed for running program. This might be necessary as well. Textbook for finding basic terminologies. I will skip this one. And then I am learning to related to research management. When I have codes, I prefer to share the code after I publish the paper. So, and sometimes journal also ask about this. So I upload my code in GitHub. This is very useful. Also, sometimes it is difficult for us to find old codes. When we upload our code on GitHub, we have a purpose for many people so they can access the code. Means that we need to make a very neat or very easily understandable code or an explanation. So this is a very good exercise, I think. So we can have a good documentation, and later for ourselves, for example, when we have a lot of research, it is difficult to track all of the progress. But when we have this kind of summary, it will help us. Of course, different researchers have different strategy. Some do not prefer to share the code. And also for me, I also case by case, but please discuss with your supervisor. If you are interested, you can open some code listed here related to machine learning and also genetic algorithm for solving some routing problem. I want to share more about collaboration with companies. So it is true that today we are talking about research methodology, but it is different when we do research by ourselves inside the university or when we do research together with company. So as I mentioned before, doctoral student, even master student are asked to talk a lot with company in Korea because company in Korea give the money to the lab so the lab can give the support to students. It is still rare in Indonesia, but anyway, that's why students talk a lot with company. And when we talk with company, then the situation or the standard is sometimes different. So yeah, I want to share about how we can manage our research a bit when we discuss with company. So basically what we do, what kind of collaboration we do with company, some company usually use some traditional method. It might be wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes researcher, they have more time to find better methods, latest method with good performance. That's why it might be useful when we researcher in university give some comments to the company, so they can find better results when they run the company. And then when we discuss with company, when we do research with company, we might focus more on product development. So I had an interesting experience when I worked with a company during my postdoc. So they focus Anyway, it made me learn not only about coding, but it made me also learn about how the data is transferred. So when we have smart system, smart factory, the data is collected using sensors, light sensors or touch sensor. So we need to know how so the company already made the machine which can move, but the data, the sensor will send the data to the computer, that time using Python language. So we need to understand how the sensors work. Basically, I want to say that it made us need to understand how the hardware work as well. When we talk about doing research in software only, it might be a bit easier rather than we understand how the software and hardware work. When we need to understand the hardware, it takes a lot of time to understand that as well. But I want to give us everyone some insight that if we can understand the hardware well, then we can also develop the product. If we can understand the product and we have the technology in software, we can also make something good. So basically our research can really produce something that can be used by people. And I believe that is how we can improve our research quality, especially in Indonesia, which we can learn a lot from South Korea. Yes, I talked about this one already, and you might heard a lot about big data, industry 4.0. So being exposed to new technology, which is used in many good countries, is also important for us. So we can understand what kind of technology we need to understand for our research. I talked about this one already. So about networking, I use ResearchGate that I showed in the first slide. So you can open it if you're interested. We also have LinkedIn. Doing postdoc. Postdoc is actually a research period after finishing our PhD. Sometimes even we do not do PhD or doctoral degree, we can also have some research time. So as a researcher, we can work also at labs. We just need to find the opening. I believe in ITS we have very good labs, and we also have many places abroad also. And yeah, when we discuss with our team members, we can get fresh ideas. So it is important. There is an interesting case that we've always often find in Korea. When we focus on our own work, we see on the code by ourselves for a long time. Sometimes we are just stuck. We cannot do anything. But sometimes when we discuss with someone, it is very easy for them to understand the problem. When we try to think about it again, we realize that that is a very simple issue, very simple problem, which we cannot find. But yeah, I mean, spending some time to discuss might give us a faster solution sometimes. So it is important. This is some offline seminar that I told you I joined about drone development in South Korea, port development also. So yeah, finding this kind of seminar might be very useful. Sometimes if you, please correct me if I am wrong, but if you have any, if you need any funding support also, I believe it is good to try discuss with your supervisor or maybe ITS which have some fund somehow. Also, we have some online activities. So I find there are many good online webinars, especially during COVID time. So we can understand anyway, the latest research in our field. So try to find some community. And then when we open the community information, we can check the researcher's profile. We can find a community which has researcher from top universities. So in that sense, when we join the conference or discussion, we will have a high quality discussion. So we can learn a lot. So that's what I tried to do a long time ago also. This is what I want to share a bit more about understanding latest technology. So everyone is talking about Industry 4.0. I believe that IoT, sensors, machine learning, big data, actually many fields use that kind of techniques now. So it is important for us to understand finding many cases. For example, in smart port, we can detect real container movement, and then we can estimate many real activities, even related with COVID. We use CCTV or camera data to understand the movement of people. And even as an industrial engineering, we are not trained to do a lot of coding compared with computer science. But when we understand this kind of technology, we can combine it with our optimization method, which I try to learn do now. But anyway, and when we learn this kind of new technology, surprisingly, there are many open source code listed by many researchers actually. If you are familiar with GitHub, there are many codes shared there. We just need to invest our time to look for it and try the code and find the working code for us. It is somehow very easy to learn the code, but of course we need to invest some time. So I mean, learning is not easy, but it is not impossible. We just need to yeah, try to do it. My friend in America, I was very interested when I saw him buy milk and it was sent by this robot. And I was thinking that, oh, now it is really happening. So the robot can detect people while moving and understand where it needs to move. I'm interested. What I did in what I am doing actually in my field is I try to understand how smart system is implemented for Ibu Kota Negara Indonesia. So for our Indonesian new capital city, there are many methods that they focus on, including using electric vehicle or hydrogen-based vehicle, and then making data analysis and decision making in real time, managing the traffic light, and then a very fast movement with any transportation mode. We have train, we have car, but we need to design it very fast. What I want to, hopefully you agree, what I want to ask everyone to do is, it is very interesting and very useful if we can try to understand what Indonesia is trying to solve. And related with this Indonesian new capital city, also there are many topics, research topic that we can solve. And of course, if we can solve this, we can give good recommendation for our country. So hopefully you are interested as well. I learned machine learning like 1.5 years ago. So now I am trying to combine the machine learning with optimization that is used in industrial engineering. And I also encourage everyone to try to keep up on latest technology and learn what other good country are doing, and then we try to implement it in real system. I think I shared this. Sorry. I also shared this, so we can skip it. And then how can we increase our collaboration opportunity? So some students here might want to be professors someday, but some students might want to work with in company later. But I believe that either or even have your own business. But I believe that it is important to do collaboration with anyone, even we are in university, we work with company, in company we work with other companies as well. So I think this is a general thing that we can do. Understanding many method is important. Why? Because as I showed before, different method, different advantage. Sometimes when we collaborate with someone, a certain people only, for example, want to work using Python. So if you only understand Java and C++, then it might limit our collaboration opportunities. So if you can learn it, will be good. Be aware of future technology, try to work on hardware. I talk about that also. Try to find good community which show collaboration between industry and academia, because academia or people in university can understand what kind of real problem we have, sometimes our methods are too simple, etc. Yeah, I talk about this one also. So yeah, some last tips are: find the right person to discuss, to learn from is very important. I'm very happy to have very good and kind but great mentors for my research. Some of them in Indonesian, working in Korea as a full professor. Some of them having a very high citation for his papers. He was awarded for as the best, one of the best professors in Korea, but even he is not a Korean. But I believe that finding great people from where we can learn from, discuss a lot with them, will help us to be a better researcher. And then this is an interesting thing that one of my supervisors tell me to do also. Doing things that other people do not do might be a great research. Sometimes doing research that which is easy and can be done by many people, yeah, everyone can do it. But sometimes great improvement in society, like for example, when someone invented the light, it might be difficult, of course, to do that kind of research. When if you are aware about Hyperloop, the very fast moving underground train, many people maybe might not work on that kind of field, but when we do that kind of research, it might be difficult. But some focusing on that kind of research might be useful when we believe that it is important and necessary. So I want to share that don't be afraid to try, especially when our supervisor asks us to try something new for us. Just try, because that might lead us to have uh, a good ability to do hard work. And also we might not know, but usually in 10 years later, we will find that that kind of research is very useful for many people. Okay, that's all. This the last one is, the faster we start, the faster we understand how to do it, and the faster we can do better research. And good news for students, this is the one way, or maybe the only way, to graduate soon as well. So start as soon as possible, discuss a lot with supervisor, learn a lot, finish graduation, and then we can do what we want to do. Thank you very much. If you are open for discussion, you can send email here for study opportunity in South Korea, including about today's topic discussion. And then, but I can start to discuss on 2023 because I need some adaptation time after returning from Korea. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for a very nice talk, Dr. Ivan. I believe we received a lot of insight for you, but I think now we are moving to our next question, and I believe we have a 25 minutes for a Q&A. So if you guys, ladies and gentlemen, have any question in mind, please do not hesitate to ask Dr. Singgi anything you want. So we have a deal here, no stupid question, just ask anything. Or maybe if you are afraid to ask in English, since our speaker is coming from Surabaya, maybe you can ask with a bahasa. Is it okay, Dr. Ivan?
Yes, I can speak a little of Japanese as well.
Okay, that's very cool. Okay, so maybe I would like to recap that it is interesting that South Korea require us to have like a programming skills in order to apply as their postgraduate student, regardless of the department. So maybe I would like to ask about that question first regarding the topics. Do you or maybe is there any specific test regarding the programming skill when we are applying for the postgraduate program in Korea?
So yeah, thank you, Dr. Trianda, for your question. At the end of my postdoc, some of my professor asked me to screen the students before joining his lab. So what I did is, at least the student need to show the proof of their coding experience. Some student will say that I already listened to this kind of online programming class. Of course, it is very weak compared with when I did this programming using this programming language, and then this is the pseudocode, if possible, very simple. And then this is the publication that I had. So the paper is published in conference or journal. That in that sense, that is the minimum requirement that we usually need. And then a long time ago, one of my supervisors also asked to do online testing as well. So in Python, very simple, please add 1 until 100, for example, and then we directly see how they do it. But it is sometimes difficult to check that because, as you know, well, yeah, so in some cases, it is not what we expect from them, but that is some testing way that we have.
Okay, oh, I see. So we have some testing here. So that's guys, the information. If you want to pursue in Korea, please start your start opening of Stack Overflow website to learn about the software. Okay, so here is a question from a very interesting question for the participant here. So our topic is like a common research methodology and your field and research management. So the question is like when we are looking for a gap, a research gap, let's say when we are just starting our postgraduate program, sometimes our supervisor asks us to find some new research gap. Is there any tips from you, maybe from using a machine learning or something that a beginner can use to identify a very fast like a research gap between some research to the other? Or maybe just a common methods to find a research gap in general.
Thank you very much for the question. I did two ways actually. The difficult way is reading a lot of papers. When we read a lot of papers, we focus on searching the keyword. So searching the keyword in, for example, Science Direct, and then we read all papers related with that. When we read, we start on the abstract. If we think it is not related, we are sure that we can remove that paper. But if we need to read in more detail, then we read the full paper or some important parts. If we already understand the set of papers that are related, then we read all of them and then try to make a table usually. What kind of method were used, what kind of problem were solved. And then it is also related with the backward or forward citation later, but I think it's too detailed. But anyway, what we do is we read all papers. The second way that I do not prefer is we find review paper. In the review paper, usually they will list potential for future work. That is also one way. So they will share, these are all the papers, and then if you want to do more research, this is not covered yet. But some people say that that method is dangerous somehow because it means that the people who write the paper already understand that they have that potential. They might already been working on that. So yes, but what I did usually is the first one. We read a lot of paper, and then after we read a lot of paper, we try to identify what kind of thing is new and not discussed before. One of my Dr. Bayu talked in the previous session. One of his good way is he likes to read a lot of papers. When he read a lot of paper, sometimes he can find some contribution, some method used in a certain field, but not used in another field. I believe you already heard in the previous talk also. So that is another way also to find research gap. Hopefully it helps. Can I add one more, Dr. Trianda?
Yes, sir.
I also try to join the conferences that I mentioned. For example, when they have drone technology, they explain that the latest technology is working on this kind of drone jamming, for example, how to set the frequency to shut down the drone. Based on that one, then I find a research idea. So based on that one, I try to do the search, and I find that there is no research about that in my field. That is also one good way to do it. So we start from the practical side, from the company who developed the product. Usually there is a higher chance to find a research potential. Hopefully it helps.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, and we have next question from Miss Rohmatul Makfira. So she want to ask about, since you mentioned about a lot of international conferences, so she actually asked about how to get some information about the international conference. Is there some specific platform on that matter? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matul. The easiest way that I always do, but actually I also face the same problem. I mean, I search in Google industrial engineering conference, but I do not find a good conference actually. So what I actually do is, when we work with our supervisor, usually that time he always introduce me to good conferences. So good conferences means that my supervisor had some good colleagues who have very good publication as well. So we join their conference. At that conference, if we join that conference, then we know more people working at that good community. We will get more information about good conferences. That is the best way that I get. It is, I tried to search on Google, but it failed. That is the first one. Other way, which is a bit more difficult, is so the first way is joining communities and then ask a lot there. The other way is when we open good journals, for example, in my field, sometimes they open a specific conference for that journal. That is also a good way. But not all journals open that kind of conferences as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ivan. So, Ms. Rahmatul Makfira, do you have any follow-up question maybe? No? Are you still here? No, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are moving to the next question. It is asked by Miss Vika Putri Rohmatul. So she's asking about, Dr. Ivan, could you repeat the explanation of the state of the art?
Let me see. Sorry, I forgot the slide. What were I talking about? Sorry.
I believe in your slide, like regarding about the existing technology, we want to give us some outperform results and give a better state of the art. Let me see.
Maybe this one.
Yeah, true. That's yes. Slide 33. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So, yeah, I mentioned here that there are two kind of research that I did. The first one is finding new problem. For example, when I attend that drone thing, I find some new problem which is not discussed anywhere. So this is defining a new problem to the community of researcher. And I think your question is more related to the next one. State of the art means the latest method that we use for solving a certain problem. So for example, when I do the drone routing, there is already a lot of method algorithm used for making the route efficiently. So every time we do research on the second part, so the second part is we have the certain problem which people already discussed. We understand the best method that everyone have in this world by reading a lot of literature, a lot of paper, understanding. Usually they compare the method performance in their papers in some table, and then based on that best one, we try to develop a better one. So it is for example, most people who are doing machine learning, they focus on improving the accuracy of the model. So also in operation research in my field, we try to find faster method or which can have a better solution quality. So in other words, when we develop a better method than state of the art, then our method will be state of the art. And then when another people do research on that field, they the right way to do the research, I believe, is they must check our paper, and then they must compare their performance up with our paper. I hope this answers your question, but if you have any more follow-up question, please, you're welcome.
Okay. So Miss Vika Putri, do you have any follow-up question to that? Maybe you can give some case. Okay. Okay, thank you. So for the next question, I believe is also from a Miss Neni Wahyuning dia. So basically she's asking I'm interested in your research related to the drones routing using some methods. However, sometimes it is quite confusing to understand each method clearly and quickly. Do you have any tips how to get a clear understanding on method which the researcher write in a journal? Let's say we have a good English skill. So thank you. Yeah, that is her question.
Thank you. The very simple answer is doing it more often. It's like I do not suggest this, but when we drive at the first time, we always have our eyes open. But later, some people even try to call while driving the car. I do not suggest that we call while driving, but I want to say that if we spend more time, then we can understand much faster and easier. Also related with paper. So that's why a good practice that I learned from my seniors is reading paper a lot. So we had paper presentation every week that time. Every time we read the paper, especially when we work on our field, usually we will focus on a certain method, on a certain problem as well. So my case, I work on logistic. I use machine learning and meta heuristic, for example. Then if we always read that kind of paper, next time at the first time, it might be difficult. So what we did is, of course, I read all words that time. I underline everything. If I do not understand, I find the terminology in other paper. I ask my supervisor and my seniors. That is the first. But at the second paper, I will have less notes. At the next paper, I will have less notes. And after, for example, 20 papers, after we read 20 papers, then we can screen the paper much easily. Or we know what is happening in this paper. Yeah, it will be much easier for us to understand the difference because we already have many experience before when we read previous papers. So I suggest we start to read a lot of papers to speed up the reading process, discuss a lot with our colleagues. So try to make some discussion groups, even it is not asked by our supervisor, and discuss from good papers. Hopefully it helps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ivan. So Miss Neni, do you have any follow-up question?
Maybe the conclusion is practice make perfect, like this. Yeah, is it right?
Sorry, can you speak up a bit more? Sorry.
Okay, the conclusion maybe when we read a lot of journal or paper, we can say that we have the practice make perfect.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe Miss Neni could contact Dr. Ivan later. He is available next year. Maybe you guys can do some collaboration in the future.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So the next is we still have a question in the chat is from Miss Sylvia. So he's asking about the review papers. So from her side is, I have a paper review about historical recovery of DNA. In your opinion, can I publish those study even though they are just a literature study? If so, in which journal do you suggest to publish that? Thank you. Maybe review paper in general. What do you think? Thank you.
Yes. Actually, every time I answer, I feel ashamed because I believe Dr. Trianda is more experienced than me. But yeah, I'll share my experience here. So this is a review. We call it a review paper. So we list the paper in a certain field, and then we let people to understand all related papers on that topic. So this is an example that I do. Usually what it is possible. The answer is it is possible. We just need to make sure that there is no similar review paper. Some review paper, they set the length of the publication year. So in my field, some paper, for example, previously they write, I review all papers in container logistics between 2004 until 2008. And then the next researcher, they will do from 2008 until 2011, for example, for the same scope in container port logistics. So it is possible where to publish. When you open the journal link, they will write whether they accept review paper or not. So they call it review paper or survey paper. So if they accept that kind of paper, then it is okay. If that kind of paper is not listed in the journal link, we can open the published paper there. So usually when we search the paper, in the title we can write review or survey or literature. So if the title contains that kind of word published in that journal, then it means that that journal accept that kind of papers. So that is usually what we do. Hopefully it helps.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ivan. So Miss Sylvia, do you have any follow-up question? Are you still here? So let me see. Oh, still here actually. Well, anyway, okay. So I believe we still have enough time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. So if you guys, ladies and gentlemen, has any question in mind, please do not hesitate to ask anything to Dr. Ivan Singgi. Anyone? So maybe I will ask first, Dr. while waiting the participant. So like in your slide on 49, 49 slide about the research habit. I'm sorry. So you mentioned about the proportion of time and effort investment here, like writing 10%, developing method 30%, programming 60%. I don't know about in Korea, but maybe you can share. But first of all, if our research is related about the experiment, like experiment related research, like doing some mixing in lab or something, can we replace the programming 60% of the programming with some experiment activities? And could you please share about how the experiment-based activity in Korea usually conducted alongside with the programming and the experiment? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trianda. This is a very good question and answer at the same time, actually. So yes, I think we can replace the programming with experiment in that sense. So always the starting part is developing the method, including the literature review. Then we work on the experiment and then complete it with the writing reports. In addition, when we do experiments, then most of my friends who work on experiments, they spend, I think, sometimes longer than people who are doing programming, or because when they do experiment, they do not know when they will get the result, or maybe the biology or the chemical, they need a certain time where they need to be checked again. So it will take more energy, I think, and more time, but they also spend more time on finding the resources that they need as well. So buying the resources, and then conducting the research. And maybe compared with programming, there might be more difficult, I think, because in programming, like when we work on software only, then it's only software. If there is any problem, then as long as we save the code well, there is no problem. But with experiment, everything can happen. Some of my friends mentioned that there is no guarantee for them to find good results. Even they spend a lot of time. It is less predictable, I think, compared with programming. But as you know, or I might be aware, the impact factor or the journal quality for people who are doing experiment directly in chemical, in physics is much higher than, for example, in my field, industrial engineering, because when they find something, they really find something, and it is really useful for developing or solving other problems, drug discovery or etc. Yeah, I think that's the difference, Dr. Trianda, and thank you very much for raising this issue.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ivan Singgi. Yeah, I'm totally agree with that. And alhamdulillah. So we get another question, but I believe this is from the other session, but it's still related since you mentioned it a lot. So this is the question from the other session, actually, from Miss Nikita that is joining us session 4. So she's asking about, you mentioned earlier about meet a good supervisor, right? So her question is, besides meeting a good supervisor, what can we do to make a right flow on drafting papers?
Thank you for the question. Yes, Dr. Trianda, please continue. Sorry.
Yeah, that is the question actually. How we can make a right flow on drafting paper. Besides, we have a discussion about with the like a supervisor or research team in our groups.
Yes, thank you. What I learned from my experience is when we read the papers, we can on one side we can focus on the content, but on one side when we write the papers, we need to also understand the structure of the paper. So there is some common structure when we write papers in good journals. What kind of thing we need to explain? For example, in the introduction part, we need to have the novelty statement or the contribution statement, etc. How we cite the references. But my point is we need to read a lot of paper. That is the first point. In good journals, in our targeted journals, then we can follow how they write the papers. That is the first one. But we need to be aware that different journals, sometimes they prefer a different way to explain the problem. For example, I explain about some paper focus more on theoretical contribution, some paper focus on practical contribution. Even when we solve the same problem, the explanation way will be different. The focus will be different. So yeah, we need to read the paper a lot. That is the very slow but sure way, because we read everything and then we reproduce what they do. But another way is we just submit the paper. When we submit the paper, then people will comment a lot. When I submit the paper to a very good journal, that time they mentioned that I cannot understand what you say at all. Even I try my best to write, but that is a very good comment. And very good reviewers at very good journals, they make a very long and detailed explanation, like three pages that time, only review for my paper. It helps me a lot. I mean, after that, we can understand the part we need to revise in terms of writing the paper and the structure. I think submitting as fast as possible after we learn a bit will be one way to do that as well.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Actually, if we have no idea about what to revise, just submit. Maybe the reviewer will have the idea, will have the point to revise our paper. Yeah, thank you very much. So I think that is a wrap for today's session with Dr. Singgi about the common research methodology in your field and research management skill. Alhamdulillah, we already finished. And if the participant still have any other question, maybe please do not hesitate to contact Dr. Ivan Singgi through his email, since he is also available next year in Surabaya, right, Doctor?
Yes, I'm at Surabaya.
Oh, you are in Surabaya already, so
yes.
maybe we can have some coffee. to discuss something
Sure.
in the future. So maybe that's all. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you once again, Dr. Ivan Singgi, for your very nice speech, and to all the participants who are still in here, and also the committee. If any mistake that I made, I'm as your moderator, I should ask for some apology from any mistake that I made during this session. So that's all. Thank you very much, and I'll give it back to the master of the ceremony, Miss Devi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ivan Kristianto Singgi, along with Dr. Trianda Gunawan, for a very good session, very informative. Also, it's very inspiring lecture today, and please give applause to our inspiring speaker and amazing moderator by using the Zoom action feature for today's empowering session. I would like to invite the committee to share the screen. Okay, so as a token of appreciation, I would like to present a certificate for our honorable speaker and moderator. So this is the certificate for Dr. Ivan Kristianto Singgi as our speaker today. Thank you, Dr. Ivan, for your time and also for your availability today in providing the lecture session. It is very informative, and hopefully there are lots of benefits provided for our students. And then for next certificate will be presented for Dr. Trianda Gunawan. Thank you, Dr. Trianda, for your time and availability as well. And then before we end today's session, I would like to invite all participants to the next session. The last session will be like 17 November 2022 on getting published and presentation skill. We do have also Indonesian diaspora for this, also from APIC as well. And then we will have two speakers, and I think one of them is from the doctoral candidate Ibu Fana. And then now I think we can drop the screen. So I would like to end this session. Before that, we would like to the participant to open the camera to have the group photo. Thank you. Now I will wait for you to open your camera, because not everyone opened the camera today. Okay. Okay, I will make a countdown. So it will be like around 7 slides. Usually today only 2 people, 2 slides open their camera. So I will make a countdown, and then you put your best smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, next slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, before that, I would like to announce that I will be resigning my position from ITS. So please, if you have any question related to R2SEP, please contact Miss Novia here. And then this is Miss Novia. I will spotlight you. So this is Miss Novia. So you can please please chat her through the provided WhatsApp number next time, because I will be not available for any question related to the after this one. I would like to thank everyone for the support during the R2SEP program, and hopefully we will have the last session successfully next 17th of November. So Now that we have finished the group session, I would like to remind all the participants to fill the feedback form provided in the Zoom chat. The participant who will get stamp for it is the participant who comes on time during this event until the end, and also fill the feedback form. And then finally, we have reached the end of today's session, and I sincerely apologize for any inconvenience during the session from me as the Master of Ceremony and also from the committee. I would like to express our gratitude again to the speaker and also to the moderator and also all participants for attention and cooperation. And hopefully we will see again. See you. Have a good day today. Bye-bye. Terima kasih Pak Ivan, Pak Trianda atas waktunya and everyone.
Terima kasih Pak Nitya. Terima kasih Pak Ivan.
Terima kasih Pak.
I will contact you later.
Terima kasih Pak Ivan, Pak Trianda.
Terima kasih.
Ya,
Terima kasih Pak Ivan, Pak Trianda atas waktunya.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hmm?